The first day always decides everything. That's what I told myself as I stood in front of the glass skyscraper, clutching my file so tightly my fingers ached. The building rose above the city like it owned the skyline, cold, polished, untouchable, just like him, Alexander Grant, the CEO everyone spoke about in whispers, strict, brilliant, impossible to please, the kind of boss people didn't quit. They escaped. I should have been nervous about the job. Instead, I was nervous about meeting him. Inside, the office was silence, wrapped in perfection. Employees moved quickly, eyes forward, voices low. No one wasted a second. No one smiled without reason. It felt less like a workplace and more like a controlled world where mistakes didn't survive. "New assistant?" a receptionist asked without looking up. "Yes," I replied. She slid a badge across the desk. "Top floor. Don't be late." The elevator ride up felt longer than it should have. With every floor passing, my reflection in the mirror walls looked more uncertain, like I was stepping into something I didn't fully understand. When the doors opened, everything changed. The top floor was different, quieter, darker, more intimidating. And at the end of the hallway, behind a massive glass door, was his office. I barely had time to breathe before it opened. And he walked out. Alexander Grant. He didn't look like the kind of man who needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. He didn't need effort. Authority came naturally to him. Sharp suit, steady steps, unreadable expression. But it was his eyes that stopped me. They locked onto mine instantly. Not polite, not casual, focused, like he was assessing something I didn't even know I was showing. "You're late," he said flatly. I'm not," I replied quickly, checking the time. His gaze didn't move. "You are in my space. That means you're already late." My breath caught slightly. Most people would have apologized. I almost did. But something about the way he looked at me stopped me from shrinking. He studied me for a moment, longer than necessary. Too long. Then he said it. Calm, controlled, almost dangerous in its simplicity. "You're not like the others." I frowned slightly. "The others?" A faint shift crossed his expression. Not a smile, not quite. Something closer to warning. "And that," he added quietly, "is going to be a problem." For a second, the entire office disappeared. The glass walls, the silence, the distance. It was just him. And the strange feeling in my chest I couldn't explain. I should have felt intimidated. But instead, I felt something far worse. Curiosity. And the unsettling awareness that my new boss wasn't just watching me, he was already paying too much attention. By the third day, I realized something was wrong. Not with the job. With him. Alexander Grant didn't behave like a normal boss. He didn't delegate tasks through emails like everyone else. Instead, messages came directly from him, short, precise, and always addressed to me. "Come to my office now. Stay after hours. I need this report personally handled." At first, I told myself it was normal for a CEO to be strict, but it didn't feel like strictness. It felt like attention. And I couldn't ignore how often his eyes found me in meetings. Even when he wasn't speaking, even when I wasn't the one presenting, I could feel his gaze lingering just a second too long. On the fourth day, I found a note on my desk. No name, just 3 words written in sharp handwriting. "Don't trust him." My breath caught. I looked around instantly, but no one was watching me. The office continued as usual, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, people moving like nothing strange existed, but my hands were suddenly cold. That afternoon, I stayed late finishing a project he personally assigned me. The office emptied slowly until only silence remained, broken by the hum of machines. At exactly 9:47 p.m., his office door opened. He stepped out. No assistant, no security, just him. "You're still here," he said calmly. I swallowed. "You told me to finish this tonight." His eyes flicked to the documents in front of me, then to me. "Efficiency," he said quietly, "is the only thing I reward." He walked closer, too close. The air between us tightened in a way I didn't understand. "You're being tested," he added. "By work?" A pause, then, almost like a warning, "By me." My pulse quickened. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He looked at the screen, expression changing slightly, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. He turned away, but before leaving, he said one last thing without looking back. Be careful who you listen to in this building. And just like that, he disappeared into the elevator, leaving me alone, with a warning I didn't understand, and the unsettling feeling that I was already part of something I hadn't agreed to enter. The office was never truly silent. Even after everyone left, the building still breathed, air vents humming, distant elevators shifting, lights flickering in empty corridors. But that night, it felt different, heavier, like the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. I stayed late again, not because I wanted to, because I had to. Alexander Grant had sent a message at 7:12 p.m. sharp. Stay. I need the final draft before morning. No, please. No explanation. Just command. By 10:30 p.m., most floors were dark. My section was the only one still glowing faintly under soft white lights. I rubbed my tired eyes and stared at the screen, trying to focus, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the note. Don't trust him. I didn't know who left it. And that was the problem. At exactly 11:03 p.m., the elevator ding echoed through the floor. My stomach tightened. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. His footsteps were slow, controlled, impossible to ignore. Each step echoed slightly louder in the empty hallway until he appeared in my doorway. Alexander Grant. No suit jacket now, just a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, still perfect, still unreadable. But something about him at night felt different, less CEO, more human. You're still working, he said. I nodded slightly. Almost done. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. The air shifted immediately. You should leave earlier, he said. I frowned. You told me to finish this. A faint pause. Then he looked at the screen. I didn't say sacrifice your health. That surprised me. I turned slightly. Is that concern? His expression didn't change. It's observation. But the way he said it felt personal. He walked around my desk slowly, studying the documents, then stopped behind me. Too close. Close enough that I could feel his presence without seeing him. You work well under pressure, he said quietly. I tried to focus on the screen. Is this another test? Everything here is a test, he replied. My breath caught slightly, then his voice lowered. But you're reacting differently than I expected. I finally turned toward him. What do you expect from me? For a moment, he didn't answer, just looked at me, longer than necessary. Then he said something that changed the atmosphere completely. If you stay in this room with me much longer, you'll stop thinking of me as your boss. Silence crashed between us. My pulse quickened instantly. What does that mean? I asked softly. He didn't answer. Instead, his phone buzzed loudly on the desk. He looked at it, and his entire expression changed for the first time. Not calm, not controlled, alert. Then he stepped back and said coldly, "Go home, now." And just like that, the moment broke. But as I left the office alone, I realized something terrifying. Whatever was happening between us wasn't part of the job. It was something he was trying very hard to control. The next morning, nothing felt normal. Not the office, not the people, not even the way Alexander avoided looking at me in the elevator. It was like whatever happened last night had been sealed off behind a locked door inside his mind, and I was left standing outside it. But I couldn't forget his words. If you stay in this room with me, you'll stop thinking of me as your boss. I replayed them all day. By afternoon, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way security followed his movements a little too carefully. The way employees lowered their voices whenever his name came up. And the way everyone, without exception, avoided talking about his past. That was when I decided to ask, not him, someone else. A junior employee in HR hesitated when I brought him up. Just be careful, she said quietly, glancing around the empty hallway. Careful about what? I asked. She hesitated longer this time. Then she leaned in slightly and whispered, "There was someone before you." My stomach tightened instantly. "What do you mean?" She looked away. "An assistant. She worked closely with him. Same position you have now." I felt my pulse slow. "What happened to her?" A long pause. Then the answer came, soft, uncertain, almost afraid to say out loud. "She left suddenly, no notice, no explanation." That didn't feel right. "And?" Her voice dropped even lower. "After she left, she tried to speak about him." My chest tightened. What did she say? But before she could answer, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Both of us turned instantly. Alexander Grant stood at the far end, watching, silent, expression unreadable. The HR employee immediately stepped back, panic flashing across her face before she hurried away without another word. I stayed frozen. He walked toward me slowly, stopping just a few steps away. "Are you settling in?" he asked calmly. Too calmly. I forced my voice steady. "I'm hearing things about you." A faint pause. His eyes narrowed slightly. "People talk," he said. "That's not an answer." Another silence. This one heavier. Then he said something quietly that made my skin turn cold. "You shouldn't ask about people who didn't know when to stop digging." My breath caught. The warning wasn't subtle anymore. It was precise, controlled, intentional. He stepped closer, just enough to lower his voice so no one else could hear. "You think you're curious," he said softly, "but curiosity has consequences in my world." My heart pounded. "And what world is that?" I whispered. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not anger, not charm, something darker. "Mine," he said simply. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the middle of the office, wondering what happened to the woman who came before me, and why I suddenly felt like I was being watched in her place. The silence after his warning lasted 3 days. 3 days of pretending nothing had changed, even though everything had. I came to work early, left late, avoided eye contact, avoided questions. But no matter how carefully I tried to behave normally, I could feel it, his attention following me like a shadow I couldn't step out of. Then the crisis hit. A major project review, investors arriving, the entire company under pressure. And suddenly, I was called into his office, not by email, not by assistant, by him. When I walked in, Alexander was standing by the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. He didn't turn immediately, just spoke in a calm, controlled voice. "Close the door." I did. The click sounded too final. When he finally faced me, there was something different in his expression. Less boss, less control, more conflict. "They're questioning my leadership," he said. "If this deal fails, it won't just affect the company." I swallowed. "Then fix it." A faint pause. "I am fixing it," he replied. His gaze shifted to me and stayed there for too long. "You've become a distraction," he said quietly. My chest tightened. "Then let me resign." "No." The answer came too fast, too sharp. Silence stretched between us again, heavier this time. Then he stepped closer, close enough that the air changed. "You still don't understand," he said. "Understand what?" His voice lowered. "That I don't let things I value walk away easily." My breath caught instantly. "This isn't appropriate," I whispered. A faint, humorless exhale left him. "Neither is what I feel every time you challenge me." The room felt smaller, dangerously smaller. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't just control anymore. It was emotion he was trying and failing to hide. A knock suddenly echoed outside the door. Reality crashed back in. He stepped back instantly, mask returning. "Go," he said firmly. I hesitated, then opened the door. But as I walked out, I realized the truth. Whatever line existed between boss and something more, we had already crossed it.